Okay, whoops. So what is Snapseed for those of you who haven't heard of it? It is probably the oldest, if not uh, the oldest, mobile photo editing apps. It's only available for mobile devices. That means you can use it both on a smartphone or a tablet. It's device agnostic, so you can use it whether on an Android device as well as an iPad or iPhone. It is now owned by Google, so it's got the backing of all Google's resources for improvements and enhancements. They haven't added that much to it over the years, but it's a real workhorse. It can do quite a bit for you beyond what your smartphone's editing functions for photos are capable of. And it was named, it's won a few accolades here and there. It was named the iPad App of the Year by Apple way back. And more recently, PC Magazine rated it as one of the top 100 best Android apps of 2018. So what it can do up here at the top, the adjusting brightness and contrast and sharpness, that may be something if you're already in the app, you may want to do, but your smartphone should be able to do that. If you just open up a photo and hit edit, a lot of these functions will already be there. So I would not, if that's all you want to do to the photo, you may not need to bother opening up Snapseed. Same with creating black and white photos out of color, although there are more black and white treatments, functions that Snapseed will do beyond at least what my iPhone will do. But it can add some really nice glamour to portraits. It's got a healing function on it that will allow you to take out scars and blemishes that might be appearing on faces. Which is really handy. It can add all kinds of different looks to a photo. It can make it look like a vintage photo, like a retro photo of some sort, say from the 70s. And so that can be a lot of fun sometimes to do. And it does much, much more. So
Scott, I just want to jump in here a minute.
Yeah.
I don't like to change my photos. I don't like to erase blemishes or lines or things because I want it more realistic. And so that's the problem I had when I got a new phone, because it doesn't give me that texture that I was getting on my older one.
Okay, that's interesting. You're not getting so tell me a little bit more about that, Mary Ellen. When you say the texture, like if you take I'm thinking for one of that milkweed photo of yours that you did way back.
It's picking up more of everything, whereas the older one, I could put my body in the way of the lighting and adjust it different ways to get a really nice background without, lines or dust or whatever appearing. Now it's so strong and refined, it picks up everything. And sometimes I just don't want it, but I don't want to erase it out. I want it, just how it looks.
Right.
I like my neck with all my wrinkles. I earned those.
Okay. Yeah, that's. And and some people want that. In fact, I will tell you something. They're calling this the trend now. This is more for professional photographers, but they're saying that is the trend, is to be much more realistic with portraits and with other types of photos, especially with portraits. So, if you have a teenager with a lot of acne, you leave that acne in. Now, I will tell you, I just took my niece's senior pictures for her outdoors. I kind of touched it up and got some of that acne out because I'm thinking 20 years from now, she may want to look at that. And that trend may have been gone and people will want to look at their faces a little cleaner. But the other thing I want to emphasize here is that your camera is really incapable. Cameras are pretty much incapable of reproducing exactly what you're seeing. It's number one, you're taking you're developing a two-dimensional image of 3 dimensions. So some things are not going to look the way you want. Smartphones are actually much better at doing this than digital cameras are even.
Well, that's all I'm using is a smartphone.
Yeah. So they're much better at capturing things, but at the same time, they may pick up things that you don't want in there. I'm going to show you a few functions to see what might work for you. But I know people say they want everything to look natural, just the way they did. Some people want to do that because they don't want to dive into all this editing and things like that. But a lot of times to really get what you saw, you may have to do a little touching up and things like that, because that speck of dust that got picked up may not be real noticeable to the human eye, but the camera picks it up more than you want. And so if you want to subdue that, then you really are developing the actual image view that you were looking at when you snapped that picture. Yeah, I'm glad you raised that, though, because that's one thing I think people get. They get a little some people call them purists, but there's no way you're ever going to be able to just on your own capture exactly what you're seeing. Someday, maybe, but okay. So let's open up Snapseed. And let me get my phone set up here. Okay, so I'm going to shrink this a little so I can see any questions that might come in the chat. But here is Snapseed. This is what it looks like. And it's free to download. So whether you're using Google Play or you're using the Apple App Store, you can find it there. Now, the first time you open it up, it will probably ask you permission to access either an individual photo or all your photos. I just went ahead and said you can access all my photos. That makes it really easy for me to just import any photo that I want to bring in here to edit. Now, I don't know why it's a little quirky here. Sometimes I will tap this to add in a photo. Here are a lot of the photos that I've already worked on, but I want to open them from my device. So I'm going to hit select more photos. And here is a photo that I took the other day when I was out on a walk, and it doesn't open. I cannot tell you why that happens. So what I will do is just go up here to where it says open and try that again. It is in there.
Scott, don't you have to click on the photo before it will open?
Yeah, sometimes it may just be my own clumsiness, but it doesn't always work on the first try. So I just do it again. If nothing else, I'll just go up here and hit open, and that will allow me to open up my photo stream and drop in the photo I want to edit. So this is a little barn photo I took while I was out on a hike. And I can go, the first thing it will do, it kind of defaults to this. And I can do a few things here. You've got different looks. These are essentially filters that will just kind of change the mood, the tone, the intensity of the photo, if you will. So let's say I go down here to pop. I just want this to pop out a little bit more color-wise. So that's what I end up getting, just a little richer of a photo. But maybe I don't want that, and I can just experiment with these. Here I go to accentuate, and it really deepens the blue in that sky and the red in that barn. And you can open up a photo and just experiment with these. This kind of gives it a little different look, sort of a more subdued look with still a lot of more of a gradient in the sky. If I click on morning, this just, yeah, I don't really like that for this one. But then you can go down here and you've got a few black and white options too. Okay. So these are just really quick ways to make some changes to a photo. And when you're ready to get out of it, if you like any of these, you just hit that check mark and it will then keep that change. So that's one of the quickest ways to make an adjustment to a photo if you're happy with it. Now, sometimes one of these, to Mary Ellen's point, sometimes one of these may bring out exactly what you were seeing. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they exaggerate it. So you're the artist here, and you can kind of make that determination what you want to do with this. Sometimes you're adding maybe almost like a little bit of a special effect to it, but it's up to you. That's just with the looks. Then when you get into here, this is where, and I know this kind of looks like the cockpit of a 747. It's a little overwhelming when you first look at this, but I'm going to walk through what some of these functions are. The nice thing about this is you can experiment, just kind of play around with these, see what you'd want to do. And this will not overwrite the original photo sitting on your phone. So you will always keep that original image. So if you change your mind, you don't like what you did with it after you've saved it, then you can just always go back to square one.
Scott?
Yeah, sure.
Could I
Yeah, go ahead,
you-
Lena.
Could I ask you how you got out of that picture and how you got, I did it before, but I don't know how to do it now. I forgot. How did you get out of?
Out of
that
looks? You mean
Yeah,
out of
mine,
looks?
yeah, mine, when I checked the X, you did X
Mhm.
somewhere. I got like a curve type thing. I got like a pencil and a box with an arrow in it. I can't get out of it. It just says open
So
all.
let me ask you, so is this what you're seeing on the
Yes,
side?
yes,
Okay.
exactly.
You know what? It's the same thing. It just converts to icons when you hold it, when you hold your phone horizontally.
So how do I get out of that? I don't want to, I'm tired of that picture. I'm not going to do anything with it.
With the picture itself or the or
Yeah,
these?
yeah. The photo,
These?
that's the photo. the
Oh,
pic-
okay. So if you're tired of the photo, you can just once you have clicked on it, you can just either exit out. The one thing that's a little frustrating here, I will tell you, Lena, and I was researching this and then ran out of time. Because I wanted to tell you this, but if I go to open here, what I can do is just open up another photo and this will just go off my screen here. What I'm a little frustrated with is that if I want to clear these out of the app, I haven't been able to find a way to do that. So they are all sitting here on continuing to stay on the app. So I'm going to do a little more research after we close today to make sure I get that info to you, because there's got to be a way to clear this library from the app.
Okay, so all I have to do is just to get rid of that right now, to get rid of that particular photo, is to just open another one.
Yeah,
Is that what you told
exactly.
me?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So again, you go to the tools, and yeah, if you do, again, if you hold your phone horizontally, say you're doing a landscape, you're going to get these, but here is your tools. Just look for whatever's in blue here, and this will show you. Right up here is just the looks. This little arch here, and then here is where you get into your toolkit. And from there, so here, right up here are the basic tuning options. These are already on your smartphone's software. So this is a part that is already built in. The one thing you might want to try out, and your smartphone will do this too, is go down to this magic wand and see what happens. This magic wand is kind of like an auto enhancement. So if you tap on that, it will just auto adjust, and I am now running my thumb. You see up here, the brightness goes up. I am running my thumb across the picture to increase that brightness. You can also just put your thumb up at the top here and run it that way. If I want to darken it, I could do that. But I don't find their auto enhancement tool all that great, so I don't use it too much. But you can also do other things. If you go down here to this symbol here, this is kind of a universal symbol for adjustments. You'll probably see this on your smartphone software too. But here I can just do simple things like adjust the contrast of the photo if I want to do that. I can say maybe make the photo a little warmer. Sometimes adding a little bit of a golden tint to a photo makes it really nice. So a few options there. And anything you don't want to do, you just hit that X right here and go back to tools. Now, a lot of other things here, like details, that is just going to sharpen the picture a little bit if you want to do that. And when you get into curves and white balance, that gets a little complicated, but it does give you some automatic options there. So curves is just something you see on a lot of photo editing software that just sort of adjusts different things like contrast, color intensity, and so forth. I can also move these myself just by putting my finger on one of the dots here and going that way. But I don't know, it's really mimicking what they call the histogram on a camera, which allows you to, while you're getting ready to take that picture, sort of adjust what you want, how much brightness you want in the photo, how much. Gets it a little bit complicated. With smartphones, they are pretty good at adjusting for that. They don't call them smartphones for nothing. So they're pretty good at adjusting a lot of that. I don't usually mess around too much with that. It's a little complicated. Same with white balance. All these other tools that are a little more user-friendly are going to be better. You have your cropping tool. That's also something you can just do automatically on your smartphone. But if you wanted to, say, go like this, if I want to make this would make this photo a little more interesting, and it's very, very narrow photo like that. Just by going, what these are down here are aspect ratios. You know, I can hit square and it just goes into a very square orientation, or I could do 7:5, 16:9. That's just all of these are just the proportional difference between the height and the width of your photo. So that means as long as you keep that dimension, whether you enlarge the photo or even shrink it, it will keep this general shape. So this gives you a lot more options than what just taking it with your phone will do. Okay. So that's, those are some of just the basic options on there. I'm going to stop there and then I'm going to get into some of the cool stuff here. But I'm going to stop a minute to see what questions I can answer so far. None? Okay. All right.
Scott.
Oh, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
wasn't fast enough since no one asked. No one had. I have a question. The photo that I have on right now on my iPad is a narrow one. And
Yeah.
when you were explaining about making it the correct ratio, as it turns out, the picture was not centered in the first place. What it was we had a Mardi Gras Sunday, and I took a picture of the jambalaya. And I took it so quickly, I didn't center it at all, so that most of the table is in front of the jambalaya. I can't crop it to get rid of it. Is it possible to do that, or you have to stay with those ratios?
No, you don't have to stay with those ratios at all. You can just crop it. You can just crop it. And once you do that, you can adjust the ratio again with that cropped image, because when you're cropping it, you're kind of changing the shape of the photo too, or the dimensions. But once you do that, you can still go afterward and adjust the aspect ratio a little bit too. So,
okay. Thank you. I thought we just had to leave what it was. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
You've got a lot of flexibility there. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. So here is where we get into some fun stuff. One of the things that I like to work with is HDRscape. This is nice for landscapes in particular, but you don't have to limit it to that. So what is HDR? HDR stands for high dynamic range. And what that is typically, this is mimicking that process, but what that does is take 3 separate exposures of a scene that you might be shooting, and combines them and selects the best parts of each of those 3 images to combine it into one. And the goal here, when it's done in normal fashion, is to much more closely mimic what the human eye is seeing. Now, some people take it to extremes and give it a really surreal look, but you can temper that here. So I'm going to tap on HDRscape, and you'll see here what happens. A lot more vivid. Now, this is just a very, it sort of defaults to this nature setting. But the sky looked a little more like this that day than what the camera captured. This was a little greener. So I actually think this looks more like what I saw than what my camera got. And it is kind of a filter, so you can adjust this to your liking. So I can just go across, scroll across the picture itself, just swiping my finger this way. Or if I want to lower it, I can do that by swiping right. So it brings out the color, brings out more detail. And, the clouds were kind of light enough that the camera didn't pick them up, but this did. And what I like about this is I kind of like this orientation for the photo. I took it vertically because I could not get some other things around the side, more modern buildings around the side of this barn out of the frame. So I took it vertically rather than in landscape mode. But so I'm kind of going with a different orientation than what I might otherwise do with a photo like this. but I'm glad I'm able to get some interesting detail up. It's kind of subtle, but up in the sky. Now you've got, when you do HDRscape, you've got some other options. Here's one for people. And that you'll notice it's a little less pronounced. And that's good for just bringing out some features in, say, a portrait or something like that. Then if you want to get into the surreal stuff, you go into fine. And what that does is just really give a much more almost like granular look to the photo. This is where people try to do things that are a little more surreal, just a little more exaggerated. Some people like this look, others don't, but and then strong would just really sort of deepen everything a little bit. And you notice as I'm going back and forth, things get darker up here a little bit on the roof. And okay, so that's HDR. That one's fun to play with. There's another one here that just does some interesting things. It's drama. And when I do that, look at what happens. And I've got a few options here, but this gives a real exaggerated look to it. Depending on what you want to do here, that's just if you just kind of want to do something a little more artistic. And you can adjust that again. All of these are adjustable just with the swipe of your finger or thumb. Okay, and you can play around with some other filters, like let's say, let's open up a different photo just to, all right. I'm going to open up a new one just to see if we can get something a little more interesting here. Okay, so here's something. All right, let's say we take something like this and go to tools. And maybe I want to play with making this sort of a vintage photo. I could go here and it brings me all these different treatments to the photo that kind of make it look old-fashioned. And again, you can adjust the brightness, things like that. So that's kind of nice. There's a retro lux that will do this kind of treatment. This looks like it was a picture taken in like 1970. And you've got different options there. So sometimes those are fun to play around with. And you also have a tool here called double exposure, which I haven't played around with as much as I could. But if I go to double exposure, this just gives a nice, cool effect, artistic effect to a photo. So what I'm going to do, I've got this photo, and this little guy is my nephew, Lucas. That's his mom. And I'm going to look for another picture of Lucas in here. And I know I've got one somewhere in here from not too long ago. Okay. So I'll just take this one. It says it can't load the image. And I don't know why that is. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't, but there are some other apps that, okay, maybe we'll try that one. No, it's not working. I don't know why I cannot get this to work on here. But it is kind of finicky. So I'm overselling this because, yeah, that doesn't seem to want to work. So
Do you
scratch
have an
that.
photo that, Scott, do you have an
What's
old
that?
photo that do you have an old photo that you've done that with before that's in your collection?
Let me look here and see. I actually usually use another app for a double exposure. That function doesn't seem to work well on this one. I don't know why, but there is another app that I use that does that much better.
I'm going to write that in my notes so I don't try it.
Yeah. Be nice to be able to do. I just don't get why it doesn't work on here very well. I think I did it once, but yeah. Okay. But anyway, you have that. And other different effects. Here you get a lot more in the way of black and white options. And some of these are almost like a fine art effect that you can get. Again, all
Photor has that too.
What's that?
Photor app gives you a lot of
Yeah.
black and white options too.
Yeah. Hey, Mary Ellen, you use that mostly on your smartphone, right? Photor?
Yeah, that's the only place I've used it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've used it a lot more on my desktop, but it's that's one that's nice to have on both devices.
One day I'll have a desktop again.
Yeah. So there's that option. So I know we talked about touching up pictures of people, but let's just look at this for a minute and see if you would care to, you can make some adjustments to somebody's face. So I have my little model here, Henry. So meet Henry, and Henry is having just Henry's having a little bit of a bad skin, as you see. So maybe Henry doesn't want to look authentic. Maybe he wants to just have me touch this up a little bit. Or maybe it's a selfie of you, or a picture that somebody took of you and then sent to you, and you want to adjust it a little bit.
I saw
so
that
there is a. Go ahead.
I saw they were
Yeah.
advertising. They even can fix the eyes if they're closed. They can open them.
Wow. I have not tried that, but maybe we'll try that here and see. Well, here we go. One of the first things you can try is to go down to portrait. And there you do have the eyes, but here it just kind of brightens them a little bit. You can see as I go back and forth, and I can even increase that a little bit. Whoops, I'm not on the right function there. But it's also got a skin smoothing option here that really allows me to smooth out that skin and get out a lot of those blemishes. Now, I couldn't get all of them, but I got quite a bit out of here. So I'm going to save that. And there are still a few here. So I am going to zoom in on this. I just put my 2 fingers on this and close in. And I'm going to go to my healing brush. And I'm going to go in here and I am just going to tap on those. And maybe I'll tap on, whoops, I don't want to do that. If you do anything you regret, you can just click on this or tap on this and it will go back. But, whoa. And that pretty much takes care of that. Okay. So that looks much, much better.
Yep. Yes, it does. Wow.
I think he would be much happier with this, don't you think?
Yes. Yes. What a difference. Wow.
Yeah. 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 Now, the other thing to think about is when they talk, there may be wrinkles that you don't think should be taken out, or there may be, you know, just like a scar that is on somebody's face that is part of their character, right? You don't want to get rid of that. But for something like this, you know, if this is something you're going to want to have as a keepsake of any kind, and they're temporary things on a face, not something that's going to be permanent on a person's forehead or cheeks or anything like that, I don't think there's anything wrong by trying to edit those out. That, you know, you're still capturing the person. You're just not capturing their outbreak, their breakout, if you will. Now, one thing to remind you or to note when I did that, you notice I really zoomed in, because what it's doing when I did that, when I tapped on these areas, is it's just sort of capturing some of the area around that image and sort of cloning it onto the blemish itself. And so if I'm not close in enough, I'll show you what happens. If I click, say, up here and try to get rid of a blemish, look what happens. There's a whole wide area here that it's kind of a fixed area that it will pick up. And so it just mimicked his eye. Now, this might be an interesting thing to do, make it a weird photo, but I don't think most of us want to do that. So the closer in you are, the more you're going to be, the more precise you're going to be. One other thing that I just show more for interest, although it's a little bit creepy, is you'll notice down here you got head pose. Watch what happens here. You know, if I want his chin up a little bit or something like that, or his forehead down a little bit, I can play with that. It only goes so far, but that's another function on there. So. Okay. So once I'm done with this, let's talk about what you want to do next. You've got a few options here. I can go in here and I can share it right away directly from the app. If I want to send this to somebody, I just, it captures everything here and I open it up and I can go ahead and, whoops, do that again. And I could post it to, say, my Facebook page or Instagram, anything like that I want to do. Or I could drop it in as a text message and it'll show up like that. Or I could send it as an email. So kind of handy there. But then you can go down here. It's sort of optimized to share things on Instagram, since Instagram is a very heavy photography social media app. But the other thing I can do when I export is go down here. Number one, I could open it up in another app if I wanted to do that. Another photo editing app, but I can also go down here to save, and it will save the changes and I can undo them when I open it up again. That means that it's not overriding technically what I did, the original photo. I can just open that photo up again and change it back. So that's if you don't want a lot of different treatments sitting on the phone. I can just save a copy of it though, if I want to do that. And if I save a copy, it will save to my photo library. And then I'm good to go. And if I want to just export this, now I've saved this to my photo library, but I can still make changes in the app itself too. And then I hit export. Export is what essentially makes a permanent copy of that photo. So it's a permanent copy. I still have the original, but I've got this edited version. And that's pretty much all there is to it for sharing. So there are so many bells and whistles on here that you can't get through all of them. I'm going to show you one more interesting option. Okay, let's see here. I can find. All right, I'm just going to call up this group picture here. Maybe I just want to play around a little bit with the focus. So I would go to lens blur, and that would allow me, if I just wanted our faces to be really in focus, but the background to be kind of blurry a little bit, I could play around with that. And I can transition it a little bit more so it's a little blurrier or a little less blurry. And I can also go in here to selective, and that allows me to go in and say I want to focus in on that. I can just make some brightness adjustments, or maybe darken it or something like that. But it only focuses on that particular face rather than everybody. So you can be a little more selective on where you want to add it. So I know that's a lot to take in. It's just a matter of getting yourself familiar with it. You have nothing to lose. It's free. It won't overwrite your original photos, and you can just try it out and see what you think of it. But I've noticed, for those of you who may not be aware of this, I think most everybody here knows about it, but we do have a lot of photography activity on GetSetUp. We have a photo group that meets every Wednesday, and we share photos, talk about photography, and then we have a little photography competition that meets on Friday. But I'm noticing a lot of people are submitting photos where that have been adjusted a little bit with Snapseed. So once people learn this, they really start playing around with it and having some fun. So yeah. So Mary Ellen, does that make you a little bit more comfortable with making some changes?
A little bit, but I've really been on the search to find how to change the how to look up the pictures measurements and DPI, because I was submitting some artwork to a gallery and they want the slide or the photo in a certain way to use on the internet. And I ended up I ended up changing what I could and then sending them a letter and saying, you know, they're going to have to give a class in it or have somebody do it, because
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other people who don't have a computer who can't do it.
Who can't do it? Yeah. Yeah.
And I
You know,
know
I think
the phone said that, you know, there is some app that you can get that did not have a good recommendation, where you
okay.
can go and send it in an email and then open the email and then do something else and then send it again. And supposedly, but I can't do all that.
Yeah. So you know what? This is a good idea for a little tutorial in one of the photo groups. So I'm going to put that on the list, because I tried out that app, one of those apps I sent you, and I did make an adjustment to get it
But
up to.
I need to be able to do it on a tablet or a phone.
Yeah, this was on a. Yeah, this was on a phone.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Yes, if you ever
Yeah.
do that, I need to go to that class.
Yeah, yeah. I will keep you posted on that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Got time for maybe one or two more questions. Anybody else have a question? No. Okay. Well, let me get out of that. So just start exploring the looks options. These are filters that give your photos different tones and detail. You can make simple changes using the adjustments in the tools menu. You can make selective edits using the brush and selective. Enhance portraits with portrait and head pose and other things, lens blur. And then you can try, I would not recommend that double exposure. It doesn't seem to work really well, but retro lux and grunge and drama and some of those, and HDR scape.